Hello everyone. I'm North Hempstead Town Supervisor Judy Bosworth, and I, along with our town board, are proud to present At Home with North Hempstead, a series of special programs for children, seniors, as well as entertainment for residents of all ages. I hope you enjoyed this special presentation and check back often for new content.
Welcome to the Cooking Lab. I'm Michelle, and today we're going to prepare some holiday cookies together. One of my favorite types of cookies to prepare around the holidays are chocolate chip biscotti. What are biscotti? Well, the word biscotti means twice cooked. Bis means twice, cotti means cooked. So what we're going to do today is prepare our cookie dough together, and then we are going to bake it once in the oven, take them out, let them cool, slice them up, and then bake them again. So let's review what we're going to need to make these chocolate chip biscotti. Well, first off, we're going to need 2 cups of flour, 3/4 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla, 5 tablespoons of butter at room temperature, cut into pieces, 3 eggs, about a cup of chocolate chips. And then we're also going to need some bench flour. What is bench flour? Well, it's separate from the amount of flour that's contained in the recipe. Anytime you're making cookies or a lot of different kind of doughs or desserts, you want to have a little bit of flour on the side so that this way it keeps everything from sticking. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to need to do is we're going to need to crack our eggs. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we're going to use all 3 eggs for the recipe. However, we're going to remove a tablespoon of our eggs so that this way we can brush them on the biscotti, so this way they have a nice shine and they look better. So let's crack our eggs. Make sure we don't get any shell. Okay, great. And then let's give our eggs a little whisk. The only reason that we're whisking them first is because we want to be able to get them incorporated so we can easily remove 1 tablespoon of this egg to use to essentially glaze our biscotti. Okay, that's good enough. So what I have is just this little container, and it doesn't have to be a perfect tablespoon that needs to be measured. I'm just kind of taking a regular tablespoon that I have around the house. It's not a measuring spoon, just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit so that we can brush it. And one ingredient that we also need to finish our cookies along with the egg is an extra tablespoon of sugar. Okay, so aside from the sugar that's contained in the recipe for the dough, 1 extra tablespoon. Today we are going to use a stand mixer to make our cookie dough. You don't need a stand mixer in order to make these cookies. You can use a hand mixer, or you could even do these cookies by hand. But today we're going to rely on our stand mixer. And the first thing that I'm going to add to our stand mixer are our dry ingredients. So our flour, our sugar, our 1/4 teaspoon salt, and our baking powder. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's mix our dry ingredients on the lowest setting. Okay, those are mixed. Now we are going to add our softened butter. Again, let's stay on the lowest setting so that the flour doesn't get all over. We are going to mix this until it looks like a coarse, sandy texture. Starting on low. raising it up a little bit. I don't see any large pieces of butter anymore. It's all been incorporated. It kind of looks like a grated cheese mixture or coarse sand. So now what we're going to do is we're sliding in our eggs. So our 3 eggs, as well as our vanilla. Again, always start on low, but I am going to gradually increase this. This dough has come together, but I always want to have a rubber spatula handy whenever I'm using my stand mixer to make doughs so that I can clean off the paddle, mix it into the dough, and more importantly, so that I could scrape down the sides. So this way it doesn't get stuck in the sides. And I also want to go underneath a bit to prevent it from, to make sure that any little bits of flour will get incorporated. And we only have one more ingredient to add, and those are our chocolate chips. So locking this again, and now turning this. This is going to take about 10 seconds or so. Okay, there we have it. Now it's time to transfer our dough onto our work surface. But it's a pretty sticky dough, so this is where our bench flour is going to come in handy. So I have a little bit of flour, and I'm going to be pretty generous and sprinkle this around my wooden board. And at the same time, I want to get some flour onto my hands as well. I have a bench scraper ready because what I'm going to do is divide the dough in half. A knife will work just as well. So here we go. We have our dough. There it is. What I'm going to do, I'm going to sprinkle some more flour onto my hands, and just very, very gently, I'm going to roll my dough into. I'm not pressing down. I'm not mushing it up. I'm just really gently rolling my dough into this kind of cylinder shape, kind of like a log of chocolate chip cookie dough. Okay, I added a little bit more flour because I really don't want this to stick. Now, once I see that my log is pretty even, I'm going to search for the approximate middle. So this way I have 2 even biscotti logs. Now I'll put one aside. I'm going to add a little bit more flour. And once again, I'm going to roll it. Basically, we're trying to gently roll this into a cylinder that is approximately 12 inches long and 2.5 inches thick. Okay, this one looks pretty good to me. So now I have my baking sheet. Very gently, I'm going to transfer my first log onto my baking sheet. And now let's repeat what we just did. However, we need a little bit more flour because this first log took all of that flour. So very gently again, just roll your biscotti into this nice thick log. Okay, this looks about the same size. And just turn my baking sheet around so that this way I don't have to reach over because this is pretty delicate. And then carefully, I'm going to make sure that these two logs are pretty far apart. Because what's going to happen is they're going to start to expand, and I don't want them to stick together. But now we're not just leaving it as a log. What we want to do is just very, very gently press down with our hands to flatten them out. And this is what's they're going to expand, and this will give that classic biscotti shape. Okay, so we don't want it too bumpy. I'm just kind of forming it. And now remember, we want to finish this. So this is where our 1 tablespoon of egg and our little bit of sugar comes in handy. So with a little pastry brush, or with your finger if you don't have one, start to brush your log. Just coat it. What this is going to do is 2 things. A, it's going to make it look more beautiful. It'll kind of look shiny and golden, but it also has another function of letting you know that your biscotti are almost ready, because that golden color is the key to knowing whether your baked goods are ready or not once they go in the oven. Your oven at this point should be preheated at 350 degrees. We're going to bake these logs for 25 minutes at 350. So there's our egg. Oops, a little sugar. Now we're just going to very, very gently sprinkle a little bit of sugar. And again, same with the egg. What this is going to do is give it a little shine, but it's also going to give it a little bit of texture. And sometimes when you have those chocolate chip muffins with sugar on top and it gives it that nice little crunch, that's the same thing. Okay, so we are ready to put our biscotti logs in the oven for the first time, 350 degrees for 25 minutes. See you soon. So our biscotti logs are out of the oven. They've baked once, but now we need to get them ready to bake again. But first, we'll need to let them cool down for about 5 minutes. And also, don't turn off your oven just yet. Instead, reduce the temperature of the oven from 350 degrees down to 300 degrees. Okay, so I'm taking my cooled biscotti and I'm placing them on a cutting board. And I'm going to use a serrated knife. That's a knife that has those little teeth that you typically use to cut bread. And what I'm doing is I'm putting this log of biscotti kind of in a diagonal, because what I want to do is cut them on a bias. This is how. So first I'm going to cut that first end off. And then I want them all to be about 3/4 of an inch wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my first one on a bias, and then using it as a guide, I'm going to follow it. Because it's more important, it's okay if you want yours to be a 1/2 inch, that's fine. If you want them to be an inch, that's fine. But the more important thing is that they're all relatively the same size, so that this way they will cook evenly. So here I go. I'm targeting about 3/4 of an inch. I'll put those two aside, and then one by one, what I will do with my biscotti, I will turn them over and then lay them on the cut side down onto my baking sheet, just about a 1/2 inch or 1 inch apart. They're no longer going to expand, so we don't need to worry about them kind of spreading onto each other. But since we have a nice big baking sheet and we have them, we'll just spread it out. Okay. This one looks good. It has a lot of chocolate chips. Okay. Last two. And then, very gently take your other log and repeat. So we'll trim the end off. And this is the part you can snack on now. And we'll start to cut. And same thing, we turn them over on the cut side, and then we will lay them down evenly. If you're using parchment paper instead of a silicone liner like I am, make sure that you hold on to that same parchment paper. There's no reason to use another piece. You can use the same parchment paper that you used to cook them, to bake them the first time. Okay. This is a perfect fit. Okay, there, put those. Okay, so now these will go in the oven for 10 minutes at 300 degrees. The biscotti baked for 10 minutes. Now we're going to flip them over and bake them for another 10 minutes so that both sides are evenly golden. So very carefully, because your tray is hot, one by one. If you need a little offset spatula to help you, that's fine. The cookie, the tray is very hot, but the biscotti are not that hot. Okay. Let's put them back in the oven for 10 more minutes. And here we are. Our biscotti are out of the oven. They cook 10 minutes on one side and then again 10 minutes on the other side. Now we need to have a little bit of patience while we let them cool off, because we really want these cookies to be cooled before we enjoy them. The texture is going to be a little bit soft and chewy and cakey on the inside, but nice and crisp and crunchy on the outside. So this is a fabulous holiday cookie. Your friends, your family will absolutely love you for making them for them. So we wish you a happy holidays from the Cooking Lab, and we hope to cook with you here soon.